reduce its costs, and that's not a good outcome for anything. We need, you know, our job is to, how do you produce more job? But anyway, this vast raft of subsidies to big coal and to oil companies and to nuke have formed the principal impediment to much more efficient forms of energy, local forms of energy, which you have abundance, great abundance here in Utah, from entering the marketplace and competing, because they could outcompete the incumbents if they were given a level playing field. And we know that every nation that has decarbonized its society has experienced instantaneous prosperity. Iceland in 1970 was the poorest country in Europe. It was 100% dependent on imported coal and oil. And the government of Iceland, mainly because they were frightened about global warming, which impacts the northern latitudes disproportionately, decided to decarbonize. And again, there were local people, there were people in Iceland who said, and other cohorts who said, we got to move incrementally and slowly, but Iceland moved very, very deliberately. Within 15 years, they decarbonized their society today. Iceland's 100% energy independent. It gets 90% of its electricity from local geothermal. And Iceland, during that period, went from being the poorest country in Europe to being the fourth richest country by GDP on Earth. Now, unfortunately for Iceland, they spent virtually all of their newfound wealth on bundled derivatives, and today they're once again the poorest country in the world. But the Iceland's economy is going to come back because the fundamentals today are really strong. Iceland today is one of the larger energy exporters in the world. It can't run lines across the Atlantic, or at least it hasn't been able to until now. It's about to, though, because Gordon Brown in Britain is building the biggest wind farms on Earth on the North Sea. And Iceland is going to connect a wire to the North Sea grid and be able to sell its energy directly to Europe. But until now, what it's done is it's imported bauxite from Jamaica and then used its huge surpluses to smelt the bauxite into aluminum and then sell the ingots on the world market. And that's its way of exporting energy. Until maybe 9 months ago when the real collapse occurred, there was literally hundreds of multinational corporations who were relocating to Iceland to take advantage of its cheap, clean, abundant energy and the high quality of life that goes along with it. Sweden in 1996 decarbonized its electric grid, or began the process of decarbonizing it. And incidentally, shutting down its nuclear power industry. It closed its two biggest nuke plants. It slapped a $150 a ton tax on carbon. And again, you had thousands of entrepreneurs rushing into that space. And I visit Sweden a lot and witness this process to develop new forms of energy from wind, from tidal, from solar, from geothermal, from putrid garbage and sawmill waste. And Sweden today, as a result of that, is the sixth richest country by GDP in the world. Sweden's economy, since 1996, their energy use has dropped by 9%, and their economy has grown by 45%. Brazil, 18 years ago, decarbonized its transportation system, and largely as a result of that choice, Brazil today, while the entire world economy is in collapse or in stagnation, continues to enjoy the longest, most robust economic expansion in the history of Latin America. Costa Rica, around the same time, decarbonized its electric grid, and Costa Rica, partially as a result of that choice, and it made a lot of other good choices as well. One of those was not to have an army, but partially as a result of that choice, Costa Rica today is by far the wealthiest country in Central America. And you can go on and on with these examples, but we have in our country much greater geothermal resources than they have in Iceland. My home in Mount Kisco, New York is powered by geothermal. Virtually every home, east of Mississippi, outside of the cities, could be, and most of them in the West Coast, West Mississippi could also be powered by geothermal, but it's a resource that is almost utterly unutilized in this country. We're number one or two in wind and solar resources in the world. Scientific American just did a extensive research study in which they show that we can power the entire North American electric grid from an area, the most barren desert land in the desert Southwest, an area 75 miles by 75 miles. It's an area about 19% of the, of the most barren land in the desert Southwest. We're number one by far in wind energy in the world. The Midwestern states, the Great Plains states, are the Saudi Arabia of wind. I have to believe that based upon my experience yesterday, I'm almost being blown out of a chairlift, that Utah has its share of wind, at least once a year. The day I was there. Yeah, it was a steady wind of 50 miles an hour, and it was gusting 80, which I think his hurricane starts at 75. I have a daughter who never gets scared of anything, and she said, "This is really scary." But anyway, I don't know if you were out in that yesterday, but it was pretty ferocious. So the North Dakota is the windiest place on Earth at sea level, and we can power the